What's up, everybody? Welcome to another Metaphor ReFantazio video. This is my second video about the demo that I played early, and for those of you that didn't see my original video, Atlus invited me out to a special event in New York City where I got to play a 2.5-hour early demo of Metaphor ReFantazio. The game is definitely something I'm looking forward to. I had a lot of fun, I had a great time, got to meet a lot of really cool people, and I want to give a big thanks to Atlus and GameSite for inviting me. But I made this video mainly because in my original video there were a lot of things that I wanted to say, but I wasn't sure about what was and wasn't breaking embargo, and here I'm going to be a little more concise. I'm going to be a little clearer because you guys know that I do better with scripted content, and I just want to, just say a lot of the things that I couldn't in my original video, because now that I've seen everyone else's videos, I'm a bit less afraid to talk about certain things. So let's get into it. Now, as far as gameplay goes, I don't actually have that much to say that I didn't already say in my video about the demo that I played at AX. It's basically SMT's press turn system with the time management and social link systems of Persona, with fewer archetypes available, and they're enhanced in a way that's similar to Digital Devil Saga. In fact, to be perfectly honest, I think the demo that I played here was actually a slightly worse representation of the game than the Anime Expo demo, because here it was basically just, here's the full game, you have 2.5 hours, start from the beginning and get as far as you can and get as much footage as you can. Whereas the demo at AX, it was like, here you have 3 starting points and you can mess around with this game as much as you want. If you've ever played an Atlus game, you should probably know that 2.5 hours isn't really a lot of time to truly experience the game. You probably won't get to a point where you're familiar with most of the game's mechanics until around the 10-hour mark. Many of the features from the AX demo, like the combination attacks, I didn't get to use in this demo. I never got to experience the Gauntlet Runner, and I didn't get to work much on characters' bonds or anything. And I actually got farther than most of the other people that were there. Now, there were a few things I noticed about the demo here, though, like party members that joined that didn't awaken to their archetypes yet. They could still participate in battle, but they were AI controlled, and obviously they couldn't do as much. I also noticed that you don't have full control over your character's build. You get a choice in the beginning that I'm assuming is what determines either how your stats grow or what your starting stats are. The biggest thing I noticed, though, was definitely the difficulty. I played on hard mode, and for the most part I did fine, but when I got to the giant chicken with glasses, there was this massive difficulty spike, and I got obliterated. I know it's tradition in SMT games to have that early wake-up slap boss fight like Matador or Minotaur, but this was just on a whole different level. He was nearly one-shotting my entire party with his multi-target magic attack while I was defending. And at that point, the demo was almost over, I had pretty much given up, and I didn't think I was going to beat him. I also didn't talk to anyone else that made it that far, so I don't really know if that was a me thing or not. But I suppose the fact that I encountered a boss that hard means I could say that I was past the tutorial. And even from the beginning of the game, it never felt like I was being railroaded, and there wasn't ever a point where I was bored or wanting to rush ahead to get into the meat of the game. The game was very dialogue heavy, but it never came off as bloated or unnecessarily long. I was fully invested in this game's story and characters from the very beginning, and let's talk a little bit about that. You have your main character, Traveling Boy, or Swag Daddy 69 as I named him, but at the beginning of the game it actually asks for your name. Like, not your character's name, you, the player's name, and that was something that I found really interesting. Going into the whole theme of this game's setting being a parallel to the real world, it makes me wonder if there's going to be some major fourth wall breaking later on. Atlus games have always been about parallels and metaphors, if you will, and even though the games themselves are works of fiction, they always tackle a lot of realistic issues, like Persona 3 deals with facing the inevitability of your death, Persona 4 deals with accepting who you truly are, and even from this short demo, I picked up on a lot of themes that Metaphor might be tackling, like racism. There's obviously prejudice against this game's races. In fact, as soon as you walk into town, you see papyrus people about to be lynched. And when Stroll joins the military, he's constantly getting berated by the recruiters because of the fact that he's a noble. There seem to be some themes that deal with class and privilege, like how most people want to have an igniter, but you can't really afford one unless you're really rich. So what they do instead is that they join the military to get one. And there even seem to be some anti-war themes that deal with militarism, like how people are encouraged to join the military just so that they can get an igniter, because, you know, like I said, they otherwise can't afford one. So because they're all joining for the wrong reasons, morale in the ranks is extremely low, there's a lot of corruption among the higher-ups, and new recruits are unknowingly sent on missions to their doom. I don't know what military recruiting is like in other countries, but here in the States, we have a lot of people that join the military because they're promised free college or healthcare or whatever, and they're also like, they're promised all these privileges by their recruiters and how they probably won't get to see combat or anything, or, you know, how training isn't that big a deal, or how the military isn't as bad as everyone says it is. You know, combine that with almost non-existent standards for joining, where people are literally encouraged to lie about their medical history by their recruiters, and we get a corrupt military full of people that really just shouldn't be there. Another thing that stood out to me is how, in the beginning of the game, they talk about how there's this fantasy world that's free from strife and prejudice. And from the picture they show, it clearly looks like the modern world, that being our world, which to them is fantasy. But you don't have to be living under a rock to know that this world is definitely not free from strife and prejudice. I kind of interpreted this as to sort of be talking about how people want to escape the real world, so what they do is they immerse themselves in these fantasy fiction books and movies and stuff, but in these works, there is still a lot of conflict. I mean, we see it in Narnia, we see it in Lord of the Rings, we see it in nearly every great work of fiction, so I don't know, maybe it'll be a thing where they go to the real world and then they realize that it isn't what they thought it was. Maybe the game calls out the player directly, or maybe it's like SMT where they try to create this new world based on this fantasy setting and it just doesn't turn out the way they hoped. There is a lot of possibilities, but the more I think about it, you know, the more excited I get. There might even be some things that don't get revealed until later on. The monsters you fight are called humans, and I know anxiety is definitely a big part of this game's story, so I'm looking forward to seeing how that turns out. And, I mean, I definitely think this game is going to get an M rating. In the opening cutscene, you're in the back of a wagon, and then you're attacked by bandits, and they're brutally killed by Hulkenberg, all while you're having a sissy fight with one of the bandits over your book. And then, like I said, you see people get lynched in town. The first dungeon is a castle full of dead people who are sent to their doom. And if you thought Persona 3 and 5 was brutal for what it did to the characters for them to awaken to their personas, you know, like shooting yourself in the head and ripping your eyelids off, here, the characters dig into their chest and rip their fucking hearts out. It's really cool, but let's talk some about the characters now. Traveling Boy is part of a rare race called Elda, which is the closest thing in this game's world to a human. They don't have horns or animal parts or anything, and all we know about him is that he's on an undercover mission with his fairy companion. But unlike most Atlus protagonists, he's not silent. He actually talks, and he has a lot to say, but it doesn't really look like they're going to give him a lot of charm and personality like Ringo. It seems more like they're taking an approach similar to Fallout 4, which I do have some mixed opinions on because I am not the biggest fan of Fallout 4. But it does look like Galaga is going to be doing a lot of the talking too. Then you've got Gallica, who is your fairy companion. She's kind of there to help you and remind you of things. We don't really learn much about her beyond, like, you know, what they showed us in this demo, but it does look like they're setting up a big story arc for her. I just hope she doesn't get annoying later on. And then there's Stroll, who we don't know much about him either. Actually, well, we do, but that's, well, at least I know a little bit about him, but that's an important story bit that I can't really talk about. But we do know he's a noble who joined the military for reasons that he didn't disclose, but it doesn't seem like he's too confident about his decision, because even after he learns that our character is undercover and working against the military, he still agrees to help, and through him we learn just how corrupt the military really is. Then there's Grius, who's one of our collaborators, and he's like this, you know, this old battle-hardened veteran, and he's probably my favorite character in the whole demo. And he also wasn't in the Anime Expo demo, so I can only hope that whatever he's doing, he's okay, and that hopefully he comes back later. Now, I don't think I need to tell you all how great the presentation is. I mean, it's got this oil painting anime art style, the way the character portraits look and move, and the way the menu works is nothing short of a work of art. The graphics are great too, and the cel-shaded art style fits this game really well, and it'll definitely help it with age. And the orchestral soundtrack is nothing but masterful. Metaphor is definitely looking to be a great game, and while I'm definitely excited for it, I don't want to get my hopes up too high. I will be playing and reviewing the game when it comes out, so be sure to look forward to my review. But anyways, guys, that's going to be it for this video. Be sure to rate, comment, and subscribe. Be sure to check out my other links in the description, and until the next video, I will see you all later.